All right, top of the morning to everybody. Hope everyone is having a great start to the day. So I'm back at it. A few differences today. It's Tuesday, March 17th, just after 8 o'clock in the morning. And I've been pretty geeked out about the Ordro EP7 of late. New gear syndrome, you know? But I decided to take a step and think back. What got me into this? What got me so interested in having a low-profile head cam as opposed to strapping a GoPro to my head and looking like a major doofus as opposed to just an old guy with a overly large Bluetooth headpiece. I wanted a little bit of the not like a spy profile. It's not like I have spy glasses on, but when you walk around either in nature or your natural environment or just in your environment in general, and you want to capture it, you don't want to add something that is a distraction to the environment that elicits an unnatural response. So with that, having something that's a little low profile kind of just made sense to me. So when I saw from doing some Google searches that were kind of inconclusive, I saw a lot of older devices where the FPV trend kind of picked up around 2011 to 2013, but the reviews of the devices were either bad or meh. Battery life, video quality. So I never really pulled the trigger. And I don't know, something happened and I ended up seeing the EP7 from Ordro. I thought that the form factor looked slick, the idea that it had a headband and it had a couple iterations prior, and it started doing 4K. I said, you know, it's a Chinese video camera. We kind of see what some of the quality of them of late have been able to do, for better or for worse. So I pulled the trigger. So I figured, you know, how bad could it be, right? Nice. It's that season, the bikes are out, which is dope. That being said, getting ahead of myself, I chose the EP7, but I noticed that as far as video quality, there were some drawbacks. In high contrast areas, not unlike how things are right now, you would have brights in the sun and the low lights would be a little bit shadowy. When you'd go into low light conditions, you'd start to see pretty major artifacting when it was trying to push for detail. But I didn't really get the EP7 for content producing. I got it really more for evidentiary collection. I'm a photographer and I like to be able to review things that happened on set, on location, to be able to make me better and just to be able to review. And it worked. It was perfect for that. So even if it wasn't something that I was displaying to everybody all the time, it wasn't that big a deal. At first I thought maybe because I like to bike into work, I could use it as a video camera when I'm on my bicycle, but I noticed that it had some pretty bad wind noise. I found a solution for that as well. I ended up putting a little bit of a windscreen that I fashioned DIY onto the device. Double-sided tape, some foam, kind of solved the problem for the most part. And I've been using it in continuum ever since. But Since I've been using the EP8, I've been noticing that, especially in like high volume areas outside where there's varying degrees of volume and sound with traffic, horns, especially in a busy city like New York City, I was noticing that it would start to kind of peak and clip and remain in that clip status for a little bit of time. So you start to see a lot of garble, or hear rather a lot of garble in the audio. Under like indoor conditions, the EPA works fine. Outdoor with the sound, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I wanted to go back to the EP7, long story short, to try to see if I can compare. Not wholly dissimilar circumstances, you know. It's the day after I filmed like a long form walk yesterday with the EP8. I'm pretty much going to take, if not the exact same, but a similar route. And we'll see how it performs. I anticipate that in the brights, it'll perform okay, but in contrast, the dynamic range will fall and you'll see like little to no detail in the blacks. But, you know, it is what it is. But I do want to see how the audio performs in a kind of similar environment. It's been a while since I've been out with it. Bottom line is I'm not going to stop using the EP7. I just might use it as a backup, you know. If I'm using the EP8, I'm starting to hear that it's running out of battery, I'll switch to the EP7 and immediately charge the EP8 at the time and then continue to cycle that way. I never really had a backup other than that. When I'm riding my bike into work, I use a GoPro on my helmet and a GoPro on the back of my vehicle. But yeah, I just can't see myself walking around with one of those things either strapped to my chest or on my head. So long as I'm doing some type of narration, it really just looks like I'm having a phone conversation. So, well, walk with me and we'll see how it performs. Yesterday's video wasn't really a tech review or a tech overview, I guess would be a better description. More so as I was just kind of unpacking some thoughts at the time. And maybe you'll get a little mix of that today too. Definitely don't want to, you know, be preachy. I have no real message so much, it just sometimes it's nice to be able to unpack these things. Ooh, weather's getting nice. By the time we get to the weekend, it's going to start feeling like summer. And I'm all here for it. Yeah, definitely interested in how that performed when that bus went by. But again, I've augmented the EP7, so it's not really a direct apples to apples comparison, because the EP8 doesn't have the update or the DIY kind of fix with like the foam. One thing I also noticed on the EP7, it seems like there are two microphones. There's one in the rear and one in the front, which suggests to me that there's a little bit of processing that's going on. Thank you. And on the EP8, I could only really find one hole for a microphone. Could that be the difference between the performance of the EP7 and what I initially observed in the EP8? Possibly, not an engineer. Definitely can see how it performs here when this shadow detail pops up versus when they go into bright exposure. See how fast the auto exposure kicks in to try to keep things level. Oh, one of the biggest things, recently a commenter on my previous video had mentioned that the stabilization on the EP8 is under par. Yeah, I think that they're right. There's no real fix for that, but maybe there could be in an update. But I went to the Ordro website and I don't see any new firmware updates. The only slot for download I've seen is for the EP7 and perhaps even previous iterations. So I guess that's a hopeful thing. Maybe they're still fine-tuning some things, and eventually through a firmware update we can see some updates in performance, which I think would be pretty cool. I've recently updated my EP7 to the very latest firmware version. I don't even remember what it is. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, I'm not into doing all the fancy editing as of yet. So I'll just do like a long form, like take it for what it is. But, yeah. Those are kind of the details as I best remember it. I'm using EP7 right now, and you see how things go. Just nice to be able to walk outside without a jacket on. Let's go a different way. Contradicting what I just said, right? Let's do a step count check. There's an interesting individual. Just at about 2,100 steps. Oh, cool. Oh, okay. Oh, there's a bus depot. It looks like they just do repairs here. I'm relatively new to living in Queens. I came to New York in 1993 at the age of 13 years old, and like shortly after arriving, the first World Trade Center attack happened. So it was like, yeah, welcome to New York. In the mid to late 90s, as a middle schooler going into high school, I got to learn firsthand what robberies were about. I must have been robbed over the span of a few years, like 5 times. And I wonder sometimes if that's just something that you kind of age out of living in New York, or if crime really had just gotten better over time. All right, put a button in that for a moment. Just want to see, what is this? Huh. Looks like it might be a Chinese bike. Maybe 125, maybe? I doubt that it's fuel injected, but cool, either way. It's nice to see people not fucking with it on the street. I don't even have anything super fancy as far as motorcycles concerned. I just am like, no, I'm not parking my bike on the street. It's going to be in a parking lot at work, and it'll be in my driveway at home. But going back, when I first came to New York, man, it just seemed like there was all kinds of violence. I was in high school and I ended up getting into an altercation in a robbery where Kangol's were kind of a big deal at the time. And I'd kind of fashioned myself to be in a position where it's like, fuck this shit, enough. And I ended up fighting off the initial attacker only to get hit in the head with something. And now I'm left with 17 stitches on the side of my head. No real damage other than that, but aside from your pride. And yeah, I haven't observed those type of things happening, but at the same time, I'm not really out there. I'm not taking the train, and from what I'm seeing in the news, grain of salt, they're only really going to show you some of the worst of what's happening just for ratings. But yeah, it looks like things are starting to decline back into the way things were in the mid to late 90s and prior. Statistics would tell you otherwise, but I think that people have just been kind of happy to see New York not quite as the dangerous place that legacy has always known it to be, or spoke of it to be, either way. Peak COVID, the big talk was everybody wanting to leave New York. Oh, New York is dead, it's never going to come back. Interestingly enough, I'm seeing New York very alive right now. Because what? What choice do people have? You have to survive. You know? When work and survival opportunities came back and they deemed it relatively safe to be able to do your daily activities, so people did. They came back. Police, firefighters, municipal workers, first responders, the people that are absolutely necessary that get overlooked, our food service folks. They're all back here. And as you can see, for better or for worse, New York is alive. Yeah, my time check, I gotta get back to the office, start my job. I've been trying to get better at doing passive exercise though. I've never been a fan of going to the gym. I know that it's, effective. I just could never find myself doing pick things up, put things down activity. It just seems super boring. And maybe chalk that up to a little bit of ADHD, but undiagnosed, but sure, we all got it on some type of spectrum at some point. Yeah, I would rather be kind of out in the world, on a bike, walking. I have weak knees, so running really was never really even an option for me. Not since I'd stopped playing basketball many years ago. That being said, after peak COVID had come and we've kind of settled into this new normal, I went to go visit a good friend of mine. And really didn't think anything of it, but it just oh, you got a cool scale. Let me check it out. Stepped on the scale, and I saw a number that was very alarming. The highest number that I've ever been in life. I was like, well, that answers a lot of questions. Why you're so tired all the time. Why you don't always have the energy to be able to do the things, even things that you like. Why your back is hurting. Why you're getting heartburn. A lot of times we end up taking medicine to be able to treat symptoms of problems. And we're like, well, as long as this medicine treats the symptom, everything should be A-okay. From pretty much every level of industry in life, it's probably a better approach to try to figure out what the root cause is and stem that off, as opposed to just making ourselves feel better in a scenario that continues to be a disease state or unhealthy. So I started walking rather, and working on the issue. I'm down about 20 pounds, but to be honest with you, I don't care so much about the numbers as how I feel. It's not a vanity thing, kind of real past like vanity stage of life. You know, once you hit like midlife, if you're even, you know, lucky to be able to double that figure, whatever number you're at, you're just kind of happy to be alive. I got a fantastic partner in Marina, love her to death, and I'm getting nothing but love from her. I have people around me that care, people around me that I have to take care of. So it'd be irresponsible for me to see a problem, not deal with it. People I went to high school, some of them are dead for a multitude of reasons. So when I look at that in perspective in comparison to where I am right now, I have very little to complain about. So I won't. Oh, that was a strong gust of wind. I wonder how I performed there. Just happy to be alive. And if you're one of the very few watchers or viewers that I have that have made it this long into my rants in the morning, thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing your comments. And yeah, I don't really have any real motivations on where this, I guess, channel is going to go. There are a lot of people that do similar things at a much higher level, and I'm really not looking to compete. I'm just looking at this kind of as a lotto approach. You got to be in it to win it, and sometimes the win is just a performance in and of itself. So that's how I'm taking it. It's fun. It's something I look forward to. It's been a habit that I've grown accustomed to. It may not be an everyday thing, but I'm going to try to do it at least once a week. Don't hold me to that. But it keeps me focused on my walks. Helps me to be able to clear my head before I start work. It makes me anticipate getting up earlier in the morning a little bit to be able to do the preparations, make sure that everything's charged up, make sure I have all the things I need for the day. I'd kind of gotten into a bad habit over the last few months of just waiting until the absolute last minute to get things together, kind of procrastination syndrome. Pardon for a moment. Thanks, sir. I had to clear my throat. I can imagine the pollen count is starting to come up a little bit. Felt a little dryness, a little parched. But yeah, we'll be wrapping this up for the day. I feel like I got enough evidence to be able to make a fair comparison of how this thing is performing, and I don't know, above all, I just feel good. And I hope that you guys out there are doing the same. Anyway, signing out. Hope you guys have a fantastic day.